Certainly.
There's not anything that's not sort of part of a actual play. So as a writer, as you had mentioned with Beth Henley,
Yeah.
You could actually just sit and excerpt a day
Oh,
and end
without
up
question.
with a play or a book.
Yeah, without question. In trying to communicate with the production staff of this particular show, like I said, we sort of want all of our projects to be kind of a co-op project. We want everybody to be equally involved, in everyone to sort of feel like they've had their input to it, rather than, you know, my grand vision or, you know, the artistic director's grand vision. We sort of adapt as we go along, so everybody feels like it's a cooperative effort. But I guess the most difficult thing that I had was trying to explain to a bunch of people, some who had never even been out of New England, the differences in communication in the South between as they're compared to here.
I was going to ask you that because, especially with living in the Deep South, I was in Mississippi for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And it's a community that, well, Belzona has 2,100 population. It's probably the size of Burlington.
Yeah.
And so communication in that town is basically divided between black and white.
Oh, without question.
And then there's sort of an integration along the lines of race.
Yeah.
And that's, the history is real strong because land ownership is maintained. So a family that was a plantation owner may still own land.
Yeah.
Large volumes of land.
Definitely. And most likely all of the land where the poorer sections of town kind of live. So I think...
well, also the same people work for them.
Yeah.
Generationally.
Yeah, definitely.
And so there's a sort of almost like a lock on time there, in a sense, relative to you know, what goes on. And though they're
Definitely.
driving cars, there is still, you know, a lot of cultural heritage that's much stronger there than in some senses. The New England cultural heritage has evolved to a certain extent. You know, we still look at the revolutionary, you know, periods of time, but I would say that we're probably in the 40s.
Yeah.
You know,
Definitely.
still in the mobster era.
Yeah.
And but with the South, they're probably, you know, 200 years back
and it's funny,
which is nice. There's a certain
yeah. I mean,
there's there's no more racism there than any place else I've
no,
been
definitely
in the country.
not. It's just more obvious. You know, I have a lot of friends. I was in the service for a while, and you know, growing up, really never sort of had any preconceived notions about anybody of any other race at all. I didn't look down on them. I didn't think I was any better or worse. They just were who they are, and I was who I was, and the two sort of never mixed. And spending time in the military was kind of shocking for me, like a cultural shock, sort of what their expectations of what I was and my expectations of what I thought they might be. It's funny because I think a lot of that behavior is tolerated in the South just because of what you had said. You know, if you own the land that somebody you're offending lives on, and they essentially work for you, and they use the car that you give them to drive, then they're sort of bred to kind of be more tolerant, which is...
Well, land ownership is entitlement there. And
no question about it.
There are black men and women who own large sects of land
Certainly.
Down there as well,
Certainly.
too. And one of the largest home care health agencies in the country is actually in Mississippi, and it's owned by a woman that's an LPN.
What's the company?
Home care.
Home care?
Yeah, it's in Belzona, Mississippi. I'm trying to think of Clara Reed is her name.
Yeah.
And that's one of the largest home care agencies in the country. And
yeah, I think a lot of the changes that have happened.
Delta home care, something like that.
Delta actually sounds familiar. The biggest changes I think I've seen over the years is sort of revolve around integration. There hasn't become so much the minorities moving up in the world as much as it has sort of the establishment kind of coming back down to earth, the farming industry kind of biting it, bad economies in a lot of the states.
Mid-Delta is the name of that.
Very good. So I think things have are starting to level out, and now that there's not quite the stranglehold on land ownership in property, I think it's sort of allowed more opportunities for minorities to kind of advance there. But still, a long way to go.
Yeah.
Long way to
go. It's an interesting place. So with adopting her work to play format, did you have to go about and do that, or was there already written scripts? Or?
No, it was. It's written as a play.
Okay.
Yeah, it's written as a play. As I said, you know, I had shopped the play around to a lot of different theaters all through New England.
Oh, okay. So you worked to get this play.
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
It's sort of been on Kimberly's back shelf for a few years, but I've approached many different companies trying to get it put on. Nobody actually thought it was very funny. People really couldn't see the humor in it. If you read it as you would read, as you would read a book, I guess it doesn't come across the page as very funny. In a lot of ways, it comes off as offensive. I think I only discovered that when I had my actors, who are all from New England, who all, mostly have been trained in different dialects, who had the right dialects, who had the right stature, the right clothing. When I heard them speaking the sentences in sort of a New England mindset, it kind of opened my eyes to the idea why people weren't getting in this before.
Right.
And I guess it revolved, it's kind of, the first thing I told my cast, first conversation I ever had with them was, it's almost like being in Bizarro world, because if somebody's going to say something horrible to you in the South, 90% of the time it usually comes out sounding like the sweetest compliment you ever heard.
Mr. Bill,
Yeah.
what you been doing?
Exactly. And if somebody is truly emotional about something, has true emotions about something, generally it's kind of frowned upon. If I was sitting at a dinner table, all my family was at the dinner table, and my grandmother was here, and my great aunt was over here. If I looked across the table at my brother, and my brother had done something during the course of the day, I could say anything I wanted to him, no matter how rude or vulgar, as long as I made it sound good. But if my grandmother accidentally dropped a plate on my hand and I jumped up and cursed or something, that would be
you'd be
out of the question.
outcast.
Right? Yeah, it would be considered horrible. And I think that was the biggest hurdle that we had to get over with, is just the idea that people communicate so differently there.
Well, I was thinking that it's probably like trying to explain catfish and hush puppies. People probably get the catfish part, but what's a hush puppy?
Yeah, definitely.
It's not as huge.
Well, it's like me coming to New England and having to deal with bubblers, and I couldn't figure out what a milkshake or a frap was, or many different sort of things. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are your future plans? What are their future plans for?
Well, right now, I actually have a few projects lined up with them over the course of this year and next year. We're finishing this production I also have been teaching over there. I've been teaching a homeschool course, which has a production that actually goes up Friday of Shakespeare's Midsummer Night Dream. Very great. Kids between 9 and 13. Doing Shakespeare brilliantly. Then after Miss Firecracker, over the last few years we've been, with Kimberly's help, I've been developing a project. It's a festival piece called Almost Asleep, which is, we were allowed to workshop at Atlantis back in November and December of '08. It's been a work in progress for probably about the last 6 years of my life, and Atlantis has been instrumental in giving me kind of an avenue to.
And so, what's it about?
Almost Asleep is sort of